please pronounce your name correctly for me?
Dušan Kochol. Whatever you want to say. You can just call me mate, dude.
I rarely say dude unless I'm really stoned. But other than that, no.
Okay.
So, all right. So you are both a creative person in yourself. You're a photographer. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Great. So am I. So we got that in common. That's nice. But you're also the executive director of Off Bratislava Festival. Now, am I pronouncing Bratislava correctly?
Yeah, Bratislava, but it's fine when you...
Okay.
Bratislava. It's like brat, like if someone's behaving like a brat.
Okay, fair enough. Now, one silly little esoteric thing. Why is the festival called Off Bratislava?
Because we started like 13 years now, actually. We started 13 years ago as the Off, as a fringe festival to a main festival, Month of Photography, European Month of Photography. And then the name just stuck and we never changed it because people knew it as Off and we didn't see the point in changing it anymore. But we started as a fringe festival.
Okay, makes much more sense now. Great. Yeah. But let's go back a little step. So how did you get started being creative? So I'm interested in your childhood. Were your parents creative? Did you have some great teachers? Like, how did this even start for you?
Yeah, I was always like the creative kid, always the one, playing with scissors and stuff, like coloring everything. And I don't know, I was always like that. And I didn't know what I really want to do in my life. I only know that I wanted to be creative. I wanted to be a painter. I wanted to be, I didn't think I want to be a photographer because I didn't really know that much about the technology and all of those things. But I know that I want to be something creative because that's all what I wanted to do as a child and still as an adult.
Me too.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, I think if you have a passion for what you do, that's a good start because that means that you're going to do it well because you like what you're doing, that you don't do something that annoys you or that you are waiting until it's over and you go home, because being creative and creating art is something that's not like a job, 9-to-5 job. You do it all day long. You think about things. You create in your head constantly.
Indeed. But now you also traveled for your education. I saw that you did some schooling in the UK and things like this. Like, why did you choose to both leave for education, but then also return to Slovakia?
I didn't leave for education. I left for myself, when I was growing up, when I was 19 years old. But I was living in London for 7 years. While I was studying there, but I also studied in Czech Republic. I was doing a part-time study in Czech Republic. And so, I don't know, I always stayed connected to this part of the world. And then I kind of felt like I want to return. I had some family issues that I had to deal with. So I returned mostly because of that. But I think that experience of living abroad for 7 years, after that I spent a lot of time in New York. So that kind of shifted and helped me to evolve in the person I am today. And that's why I'm probably doing what I'm doing today. That's why the festival maybe looked that way and maybe the gallery looked that way and my art looked that way. But I guess it's everybody's journey, too.
A lot of artists have very distinct styles to their region where they were sort of trained and all that if they stay there their whole lives. And then you can often tell when an artist has left their, let's say, home country or wherever they were trained and sort of expanded their horizons and tried different mediums and different perspectives and so on. I can generally tell the difference between a person who's sort of moved a lot or traveled a lot versus somebody who stayed in one place.
That's true. But in today's world, you can also tell that if people are looking a lot, you can now somehow substitute with like Googling a lot or like spending a lot of time on Instagram. You know what I mean? Like copying things that are happening somewhere abroad.
It is true. There are more opportunities for exposure now than there ever have been in the past.
Yeah.
Now, you say you have a gallery and the festival. Is that so? Let's see.
Yeah,
So you are a photographer. You run a gallery and you run a festival. Is that all you do, or do you do more?
yeah, I do a lot of things. I'm first and most the artist. That's the way I see it. But then, I founded a festival 13 years ago. 2 years ago, we thought that we should open a gallery as well because that's a very different platform to festival. That's a very different way how those two things work. I mean, then COVID happened. Like it's that the whole opening process was very slow, and it somehow slowed us down a little bit. But we managed to open the gallery last year physically. We opened in 2021, so it's gonna be a year now. The gallery's open. Now I'm sitting in the gallery. I don't know. It just felt like a very natural step to open a permanent space because a festival happens annually in November for a couple of weeks and then it's over. Even though we are working on the preparations and everything for the whole year, but the exhibitions last only for like 2, 3 weeks. And then we thought like, oh, we should have some place that open the whole year long, curate exhibitions that are presenting art, photographic art, the whole year around.
Now, so this gallery, is it a like your traditional gallery where you have a series of artists you represent and it's all about sales, or is it more of a like an exhibition space that has an exhibition but not necessarily represents artists?
No, we do represent artists. We do represent local photographers. And that was actually the reason because festival is very non-commercial stuff. That's where you exhibit the work as it should be done. The artistic side of the exhibitions of the project should be on the highest level on the festival. And the gallery is more for the commercial side of the festival because to be honest, there wasn't a platform like that here in Bratislava that would be selling or promoting local photographic artists on that kind of level and like taking them to art fairs and from the business side of photographic art. So we decided, me and my colleague Zuzana Lapitková, who is a co-director on the festival, that we would like to use our skills and experiences and open a space like that.
Now, just to be clear, though, is this sort of one company, the festival and gallery, or are these sort of separate companies?
They're two separate companies because festival mostly operates on grants, work with the Ministry of Culture and all that, and the gallery is more of a commercial space. So they're two different organizations, but the same people are behind them.
Well, I'm thinking more from like you're saying, like sponsorships and grants and all this kind of stuff. Like one of a festival as I'm assuming it's an NGO of some sort, kind of thing.
Festival is a civil association, and gallery is like a proper company.
Every country has different regulations on that kind of stuff. It's
Yeah,
all for taxes, I know. Well, one thing I'm fascinated about is that you all choose themes for your festival every year.
yeah,
I'm always interested in sort of like going behind the curtains of like how are these things done?
yeah.
Like so like how do you choose a theme? For that matter, even how far in advance do you choose them? Like is it like a 1 year, 2 years, 3 years?
It's a year in advance. When we open the festival, we already announce the subject for the next year. A lot of the festivals around the world do it. Even like Biennale in Venice, they've got a theme. But then when you go there, you don't really see it. It's like it's very vague, and we try to follow the theme, like really try to follow. I mean, it's always like a theme that's quite broad. Like you can cover a lot of areas of that subject, but we really try to follow that. And we started to do it like I think it was the fourth year of the festival or fifth year, and it was before like the first couple of years, like we didn't really know what we are doing, and we kind of like some kind of attempt, and we tried something, and it was like, oh, this doesn't work. We should change it a little bit, like that. You know what I mean? So, and then
Oh, I
on the
do.
fourth or fifth year, I don't know really which year it was. I don't remember anymore. But we established like a proper subject for the festival because years before it was always very like, oh, documentary or something, new art. So like very broad subject. Then we had subject we titled Generation Y. All the projects, suddenly it was like, because we normally exhibit on the festival young artists anyway, it's quite young art. It suddenly made sense because those artists create about their life, and it was very natural. And that year was suddenly very different. And to me, it made a lot of sense. And even the responses from the audience were different, like, because suddenly there was some kind of connection between everything. And when you walk through, because the festival, what is very important, we are in one big space. All the 20 to 30 exhibitions are in one space. So when you walk through the exhibition space, you kind of get one notions and different opinions on the same subject. So when you leave, you can almost have like a dialogue with all the artists. You can kind of get something, some notions of the subject, and this really worked for the first time when we had Generation Y, and then we felt like, okay, we have to stick with it and work with it somehow and make it better. And every year we choose a subject. We choose quite social subjects about people, and like from environment to dogmas to last year we had a family portrait. So it's a kind of very social thing. I think it works. I think it works. And to really answer your question, we choose the subject a year in advance, and we know what some of the projects we are going to be exhibiting this year.
So you already have some sort of artists or projects in mind when you come up with a theme, sort of
Yes.
as sort of the foundation project, sort of the bigger named or bigger funding needed kind of projects, kind of thing, as the sort of columns that are sort of holding up the whole rest of what you're going to schedule around it.
Yeah, we have some, because the festival works on the open call, but also we invite artists to exhibit. Some of the artists we want to invite, or we are inviting, we know already what we want. And we also don't choose the subject like, because both of us, like, or like all the other curators of the festival, we kind of travel and see what's around and so what people are exhibiting, what people are working on. So we don't choose a subject that no one working on. You know what I mean? Like no one. So we're kind of choosing subjects that it's in there anyway. Like we don't choose something completely out of sense of what's out there, because then we would make it really hard for ourselves choosing 30 exhibitions about, I don't know, like reindeers or something. It would be hard.
I was actually going to ask, what's a topic that nobody's working on?
Yeah, I don't know. Like that, you could probably find something that you would end up with exhibitions that are not very good just because they're working with a subject.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, is it always a subject, like a topic, sort of idea, or have you ever even thought about doing like medium based, like do an entire one just of like analog photography?
Oh, well, we never thought of that because we try to cover all the photographic new art mediums. It's like, I think that would be very limiting. And I don't think that's suitable, because we do from like very traditional black and white photography, documents and portraits, to multimedia installations and performance art. We try to cover it all. So I think that would be very limiting. And I think even from the audience perspective, it might be really boring if you had only one medium.
Agreed. It was just an idea.
Yeah, I mean, we can consider it.
Don't get me wrong, I don't work in that way, but it's just sort of it's one of those things, is like, because to a certain extent you're trying to sort of have your finger on the pulse of what's going on in the industry. You're trying to be somewhat progressive and interesting, but you still do have to answer to, like, A, what are people making? Because even if you want to do the theme on a certain thing but nobody's making that, then that sort of leaves that idea out. And B, you also do have to take into consideration that you have to make something that's of interest to people. So like you can't go too esoteric and too crazy, because then nobody's going to show up.
No, I mean, I mean, the first part of the thing you said, like, it's a dialogue between us and artists. it's not just about us. We consider what people are working on, and we want to present what they're working on. It's not about like we're going to create some kind of very abstract thing just because we want to, and we are curators. And you know what I mean? Like, it's collaboration between us and artists. So I think that's necessary, that we have to consider the subject. And the second part, I mean, we do crazy stuff, but it can't be the whole fest. It always has to be balanced with something else, because from the beginning of the festival, we wanted to be to the broad audience. We wanted to bring the art to the biggest audience as possible. So we have to balance crazy stuff, as you said, with something more traditional. So if people come there, and that's always what I say, like, to people who are like, oh, that's not for me, like, I don't understand art. I always say, like, oh, just try it. And there is so many different options that you're going to like something. So I think this is our approach. And we manage to bring bigger and bigger audiences every year, so it works. Even in those 2 COVID years we were lucky enough to open the festival to the public. And, you know, we break records in attendance every year. So I think it's great. And I feel very lucky.
It sounds great. I mean, you said you work with the ministry and all these kinds of things. Like, this is one of those things that I find fabulous about most of Europe. Like this support that the government gives for these kinds of projects.
Yeah.
You also even talked about art fairs, because I know some countries, I'm not sure about Slovakia, where they will actually pay to send galleries to art fairs.
Yeah, you have to pay for it. Art fairs are not for free. You have to pay for that as a gallery. It's expensive.
Yes, they are.
But that's the business side of art. That's completely different. Like, art fair and the festival are just 2 complete opposites of the spectrum.
It's funny. And in my youth, I didn't understand that difference. I thought that they were very similar in many ways. But as I've gotten older and have seen more of both of them, I've come to learn that, a festival is really sort of more a proving ground, or even a testing ground for an idea or a project, more so than sort of the idea of an art fair, which is actually more of a commodification and the financial transactions, more so than trying out some new creative idea.
Yeah, exactly. Festivals are for establishing the artist. And then more festivals they exhibit at, the higher price they've got on the art fairs. It's like, if you would compare it to fashion, people maybe understand that analogy more. Like, in fashion, you've got the haute couture collections on the catwalk, which is the art version of it, and then what they sell in shops, it's more cut and narrowed versions of exactly. So it's something like that, I would say, in a very, very absurd analogy.
Well, it does seem like at the festivals, you're often seeing more progressive, conceptual, even technical, like they're pushing bounds and limits more. Whereas art fairs often are sort of more established, like, oh, you already recognize a style or something. But an art festival is where you're going to see the more progressive new things that are potentially going to become the styles of things and people.
Because at the art fair, galleries want to sell. You know, if they pay, I don't know, like 10,000 to 20,000 euros or dollars for a stand, for a booth, they want the money back. So they have to sell. You don't see that many galleries experimenting. You know, they bring their big guns to sell. And also the presentation and art fairs, it's not the way the artists would their work to be presented. It's almost like a salon, you know, like one picture, another picture next to it. You know, it's like, as much as you can squeeze in the small booth, you know, it's not the way the artist would present the work. So festival should be the ideal version of how the artist imagine the work to be presented and what the project about. But the art fair is it's all, you don't see very much. I mean, like, some of the biggest galleries do it, but they don't present only one artist at the art fair. They've got like 20 there or 10. So it's like bigger number of artists. So it's always like 1, 2, 3 pictures from each. artists, so it doesn't really make sense as projects as well, because artists now mostly work not as especially in photography. I don't know as much in painting, but in photography, artists normally work as projects. They don't work as, oh, I took one nice photo, that's it. You know what I mean? Like, and on the art fairs, you don't see the whole project.
In many ways, I wish photography would be allowed to just do, here is one magnificent photo, in the way that like painters and sculptors can do that. Like, I mean, almost all of us can make one magnificent photo.
Yeah. For the rest of your life, you would be like exhibiting that one photo.
Hey, you know what? If any of us are known for even one photo, we should be very proud.
Yes, we would be lucky. Yes, we would be very lucky and proud. Exactly.
So back to the fair, though. So when you all are, okay, so you have some artists that you choose as a sort of your foundation of your theme for the year, but then you do an open call. And I have entered into open call submissions for art fairs, art festivals for decades, never once getting into them. And so I'm fascinated by what have I done wrong? I guess it's more to the point of like, what's a good sort of an application? Because like, my pet peeve is the issue of, I can make strong imagery, but I'm not sure I'm always really good with my supporting context and text. And so I'm wondering, like, how important are those two elements individually or together?
I can't speak for like other festivals. They might have a different way of selecting projects.
I should hope so.
The way we are choosing projects from the open call is very simple. We get like hundreds and hundreds of projects every year that we have to go through. The whole board of curators down of the festival, of the festival is down, and we project the work on the wall, and we are looking at each project, and as we are looking at it, one of the curators reads the text, what is the project about. And then we always, then we vote. Yes, no, maybe. And then we see like how many projects we have. Yes, then we go and look into the maybes if we need more. Then we also work with a very distinctive space. For 5 years, we were in a 19th century palace, we had frescoes and chandeliers, and it was very run down. So it had a really interesting charm to it, that you had like a contemporary art in this kind of place. But then the palace belonged to city, and they started reconstructing it. So more they done there, less we could do, because it was then forbidden to do stuff there. So we eventually had to find a new place where we can create more than just hang a picture on the wall, And we moved to an old department store, like from 70s, which is in the center of Bratislava, which sits there most of the year empty. We were on 4 floors this year of the department store, so it's a huge space. But it's a very, very different atmosphere, because it's that very communist kind of architecture and very kind of used, I would say. But it's got its own charm. So we can again work to the extent we can do as much we really want there, which is good for the art, because there are no limitations. We have to think of like, oh, this is a certain space, and we know we can do like, I don't know, we had like over 30 exhibitions last year, so we know exactly what projects we need, because some projects wouldn't work at some places at that space. So we sometimes look for a certain project for a specific space. So that's a very important part of that as well, of selecting projects. Because like, for example, last year we added a basement floor, which is like, it was like a -3 underground, a huge, like, I don't know, it was like 10 meters tall ceiling. It was huge. I don't know if it used to be a bunker or something, but it was a very specific space. So it needed specific projects. We wouldn't ruin someone's intentions by placing it into a space which is not suitable for it. So that's what we also operate with. because it's not like the gallery here I'm sitting at now. It's all this sort of the typical white cubish space, like white walls, concrete floors, empty, nice light. Festival's not happening in that sort of space. There are certain areas which might look like that, but most of it doesn't. You don't want to disturb certain art by placing it into space which would be clashing totally. So that's what we have to consider as well while we're choosing the project.
All right. And so the process of sort of whittling it down from the hundreds of submissions that you get down to the right ones. So it's partly the location itself and how the work relates to it. What I'm sort of interested in is like, so let's say somebody who's listening to this podcast intends to submit this coming year.
Yeah.
What would be like some aspect, like, I mean, even stupidly technical things like, do you put in detail photos or do you just do big photos? Like, how do you sort of follow all the guidelines correctly to make sure that the work is at least well received and understood by you all?
I think the simplest, the better. I mean, to see the project, we want to see all of the images in the project. Like, just send a PDF file where we can see. You have to upload like 5 images, I think, on our website where we can see like 5, like the thing you think are the best ones from the project. But also we want to see the whole project, which doesn't have to be like high res or anything, but just to have a notion if those 5 images are not the best ones and the rest is. You know what I mean? Like, we want to see the whole thing. But then also we ask people to send us like a visualization or like in a written form, their ideal way of exhibiting the work. And this is why we ask for that, because we place it to a space where it would work the most. So first of all, like the project has to match the subject, because a lot of artists send projects even, like to all the festivals without reading their subject or the themes. And then we just have to read it and sort of like, how is this really matching the theme? Like, like you're really trying hard, like thinking like, oh, wow. Like adding a 1 sentence at the end of the description, like it's not gonna work. It has to match the subject. Then just make it simple. Make it for us, it would be like, make it simple, make the presentation really simple.
Well, it's interesting because, like, I was raised, or I keep saying I was raised, I was sort of trained in the United States, in the US style. And our teachers always were telling us we had to be like cheerleaders and like sell our work and talk about how it fits into the canon of the art world. Yeah. Now that I'm in Europe, I'm realizing that a lot of the applications for things here are the easiest way is to say sort of humble, but it's basically just give the facts. Just say, I'm doing this with this materials and this is what I'm trying to express. And that's all. Because
if you have to go through like 1,000 projects, you don't want to read the, like the covering letters and all the, like the stuff. You just want a simple information, because people can say how amazing the work is and stuff. And then you see the work and you go like, yeah, well, I don't really see it there. You know what I mean? It's very individual. It might not work for us. It might work for someone else. But can I swear on this thing or not?
Absolutely.
So you don't want to see the whole bullshit around it. You don't want to see the bullshit. You just want to see the work, and they can keep the bullshit.
I love it. I mean, this is the thing is like, again, like I spent much of my adult life in the US, but now that I'm in Europe, like I love the fact that you all don't want all that bullshit. You just want this is what I'm doing. This is why I'm doing it. And this is how I want to present it there. And you either like it or you don't. I love that. And I mean, you can keep some of the bullshit for the, like for the descriptions of the project, because they are, sometimes very elaborate and stuff. You can keep it for that part of the project, but not about just selling it to someone. I do. Yeah. Now, okay. So when you're doing the festival, though, something I often wonder about is like shipping and customs and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. Like, so are a lot of your exhibitions where people bring the works in, or do they print them, or sort of do the output or the present? This is very individual, depending on the project, because if we can produce it here, we produce it here. We print the stuff here. We even done some of the installations. But if it is like very complicated, like
object-wise or like cutouts or collages and stuff. There's like really like one piece that can't be reproduced, then we have to ship it. Most of the exhibitions we produce here in Bratislava, we've got great people we work with. So I think the artists are always happy with the results. It's easier and it's also cheaper than sometimes it's shipping, sometimes it can be very expensive and annoying and stuff. So it's always easier to have it under control with people you trust.
Oh, yeah. My biggest problem is with customs. When you ship something to a different country and trying to explain to customs that it's not an item that's for sale and it's going to be returned, like, oh my God, what a fucking pain in the ass.
Like always that sort of like, do you really think I'm going to sell this? Like, who would buy this? So yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. But we've got great people. Like even, our team is getting bigger every year. It's now like 15 people. As a part of our team now, we've got a guy who is in charge of all the printing and stuff. So and he works in a big company that's their job. Yeah, I'm happy now. The way it's going. We'll see in the future. Like if we've got money for it, we can produce it. At the beginning of when we started doing the festival for the first, I don't know how many years, we couldn't afford to produce the work because it's expensive. We asked people to ship it or bring it with them.
Well, speaking of that, I'm interested always, like, how do festivals continue to do this? I mean, you get the support, I assume, from the Ministry of Culture. And then are you the kind of festival that gets like corporate sponsorships and things like this?
Yeah, we try. I mean, the main sponsor is the Ministry of Culture, the grant for big festivals. So we get that. That's like a 3-year sponsorship. So you ask, like you submit your grant once a 3 year, and when say it's okay, then it's you get the money for 3 years. Like every year you get money. Then you have to ask again, after 3 years.
That's really nice, though. To even get it for 3 years is very luxurious.
Yeah, it is. I mean, they don't give you the money in once, because that would be a lot of money, and you would spend it, and then you wouldn't have any for the next year, next years. But I mean, this is good because it's complicated. These grants are very complicated. Like it's not an easy thing to do, and I think they make it really complicated and complex just because they don't want too many people to apply. So it is difficult. It's like I don't know, like it's a whole book of papers, like 200 pages of stuff, that you have to do. And then you have to after it's done, you have to, give them all the reports, how you spend the money and all the stuff. It's difficult. You have to have a person just for that, nothing else. And that person is getting crazy completely from, like doing all the paperwork.
Oh, I do know this podcast is paid for in part by a grant, and I've done reporting in grants before, but like this is a extra level because I'm also having to do it in a foreign language, so it's in Czech as well, so exponentially more difficult.
Yeah, so but also like they give you money, so I mean this is the deal, so you have to do it. And then also, we try to have like corporate sponsors, like it's not always easy to find company that would give, companies mostly would give you stuff. You can find partners that would give you something or do something, but they don't give you cash.
Well, I would imagine for a festival that could be very beneficial, though, because like you could get food or drinks sponsored, you could get projectors sponsored. They give you some projectors, kind of thing. Like there are lots of technical and sort of hard costs that like it's just much easier if you don't have to deal with it. So I'm imagining it's actually reasonably helpful.
Yeah, but also like there is a big get goes for like people. You have to pay physical work, because there's a lot of work and people not going to do that for free. So you need money. That's like one of the biggest number how you spend your money to pay people's work.
And yet are in the arts, most grants give the least amount of money for actual like salaries and this kind of stuff.
Exactly. So it's almost like us as the team of organizers is almost like a voluntary work.
That's sad.
So yeah, but that's how it is. So,
but it shouldn't be that way. We should be doing something to change that.
Yeah, we are trying. I think everybody's trying, but it's not that easy. Like I think one of our things we want to do for the future, when people ask me like where the festival is going to evolve and what you want to change and what you are adding next year, it's not really making the festival bigger, but it's making the festival better, especially for dealing with artists and treating artists. For example, now we cannot afford things like paying for travel, like if we have art, because we've got artists from all around the world, like from Japan to America to Australia, and we cannot afford to buy them flight tickets and buy them hotels and stuff, like the accommodation and stuff, because that's too expensive, you know what I mean? Or we cannot afford like pay them fees, artist fees because we are showing their work. So that, like these are the things that we would like to change for the future if we manage to get more money. Things that people on the outside wouldn't see. But the overall experience of exhibiting at our festival would be much nicer for everybody because people would feel appreciated. And that's something, we want to change for the future, but it's not easy. It takes years and hard work and begging for money.
It's true. I used to run a nonprofit. I know all about the begging for money stuff.
Yeah.
But no, wait a minute. I just have to ask, though. Nobody can see this, but you look incredibly young for somebody who has been running a festival for 12 years. How old are you?
I'm 38. I started running the festival very young.
Okay, because like when I think of a festival director, I often think of somebody with gray hair running a festival.
Yeah, I have some gray hair, but especially after every year of after festival, I get older and older. All the stress and stuff that makes you tired and old. But I mean, I started young, 25 or 24 when I founded the festival.
I'm just, as I said, like traditionally the idea of a director is much older.
We have a very young team. The whole team is very young, which is good. It's good energy. It's got the motivation is there and all that. It keeps me going as well.
Well, actually, which brings up an interesting question, which is like sort of how is photography in Slovakia sort of being received? Is there a lot of Slovak photographers that are getting out into the world, or is it sort of difficult to sort of get out of the country?
Well, it depends what you would like to do. If we're talking about like art photography, or if we're talking about like document or reportage or...
Oh, I'm always talking about art.
I think that's going to be our job as a gallery now. You've got some artists that made it, exhibiting all around the world and stuff. But I think it was missing. This platform was missing that would be promoting these artists around the world. So I think that's going to be our next job with the gallery to do it. When you said earlier that we have artists that we represent and the group of these artists, we are still establishing that. We work with some, but it's not like we're still kind of like working who we want to work with and who we're going to push forward.
I would love to submit my work if I'm eligible.
We are focusing on local artists, especially Slovak artists. I knew you were going to say that. Americans have got their own lot of photography galleries in New York, and Chicago and LA.
I've never lived in New York or Chicago. Never been represented by any of those galleries.
Where you said you are from the East Coast? Where?
Washington D.C.
Oh, okay. I've been there. It's a beautiful city.
Beautiful place to visit.
Yeah, I was there for 2 weeks. I was staying at this Slovak embassy, which is a very brutalistic building, and I had an exhibition myself as an artist. It was some kind of European Culture Week or something like that. I can't remember. It was a couple of years ago. So it was a really interesting experience, and I was there for 2 weeks by myself, making friends and going to museums.
Oh, yeah. No, D.C. is great. I mean, I have no ill will towards Washington, D.C. I just don't want to live there anymore.
We went to some really great jazz bar somewhere. Can't remember what it was called, but it was very cool.
Adams Morgan or DuPont Circle, probably. Yeah, they have the best jazz bars. I shouldn't say that because I haven't lived there in 20 some odd years now.
Oh wow.
God, 30 years. Holy shit. Long time since I've been there. But okay, but back to like your work also. So like you're also a practicing artist. Like how do you juggle all this? I mean, you're trying to be a practicing artist, get your art out into the world, make books, because I know you do that also, and run a festival, and now in addition run a gallery in the middle of a pandemic, no less.
Yeah.
Like how are you juggling this like personally to be able to work, because I find it difficult as creative people oftentimes, like myself included, like we want to be known for, hey, I'm a great artist, but you have to be a teacher or a director of a festival or a whatever other thing, and then you end up getting known for that thing more than your art.
I mean, you need to know how to switch from one thing to another. I mean, it helps you in a way. Like when I work on the festival or in the gallery, I can be more empathetic with the artist because I understand it from the other point of view, from their side, and as well when I'm an artist working with the gallery or working with festival directors exhibiting my work, I can understand it from their point of view. So I can somehow navigate. It's helpful in a way. Like when my last exhibition was in Belgrade, in Serbia, on the Belgrade Photo Month, and I somehow knew how to help them when I came there to exhibit my work. That I'm not too much of a trouble. You know what I mean? Because I know what they were dealing with from their point of view. So it's helpful, but in a term of creating art, it's like when the festival is happening, for example, like I don't create. There is no time, no creative energy in me to create anything because I spend all my creative energy on exhibiting other people's work and making the whole festival, because it's like one big thing. So you create the whole thing as an event and as a visual. I create mostly in the spring because the festival is in November. And I used to go to New York for like 2 months, 3 months in the spring. And that was my creative period. But then COVID started. I was supposed to come to New York like a week after the COVID started. So previous president, Donald Trump banned Europeans from coming to, which was good because I wouldn't want to spend the first couple of months of pandemic in New York because that wasn't probably very good there. But yeah, so the whole plan, it didn't happen. So now it's my creative juices are starting to flow. This is my creative period, the spring.
Yeah, I mean it's hard because like I keep sitting back and I'm like, I have this like theory that basically what artists want most is time, space, and money. Those are the three things we want the most. And one of the hardest ones to deal with is actually like time. Like finding time away from other stresses, other inputs, other whatevers. I also have multiple jobs and things like this, and you're pulled in many different directions, but yet we still need to find that time to devote to being creative as well.
And energy,
we'll go a little
creative
crazy.
energy, because when you spend that creative energy somewhere else, then you don't have, an older I get, like less of it I've got. You know what I mean? Not creativity, but the energy itself. So I'm just tired. I just want to go home and sleep. You know what I mean? So
you wait. I'm 48. Yeah, like it gets worse.
Yeah, well, I know it's not going to get any better, so I don't want to complain. But during the festival, when the festival is being prepared and being organized, there is no energy left for anything else. It's stressful. A lot of people actually like don't realize that, like how stressful that is. That organizing an event it's stressful. And like when we get new people, we want new people to be members of our team. Some people don't realize that, and they come there and they think it's just going to be fun, and like, no, we're going to hang some pictures on the wall, and then we're just going to drink and whatever, and we're going to have a fabulous opening because our openings are fun. Like our openings of the festivals are big events with like DJs and it's a lot of fun. And we get like 1,000 people at the opening, so it's a big thing. And a lot of the people only see that, like, oh, there's Dušan, wearing fancy clothes and drinking. It's not, but they don't see the points that lead through that, and they don't understand that when we are there wearing nice outfits and drinking drinks and having fun, we've got earpieces in our ear and listening to all the bullshit and shit that's happening all around, from like overfloating toilets to like pictures falling on, like the whole thing is happening, and we are so tired. Everybody is so tired. So it's almost like the last grasp of desperation that makes you have fun that evening, but everybody's exhausted.
Well, not only that, what a lot of people don't realize is most people who like do these kinds of events and stuff, all these beautiful outfits that they're wearing and all that stuff, they've had that stuff like in their car, or they had to like keep it there, and they literally changed into it the last 5 minutes right before the doors
I'm always
open.
changing at the toilet. But we were supposed to open the festival at 6:00. I mean, we opened it at 6:00, but 5:55. Like literally 5 minutes before the opening, we were all like in like dirty clothes from paint and stuff, and then we went like to the toilet, changed to the like nice outfit, and then you go out and you smile, and there's like suddenly like hundreds and hundreds of people coming, and you're just smiling the whole evening because you are, like you have to, right? That's my job. I can't be visible there, and people think like that. It's not really, but that's part of it. You have to switch. You have to switch it on.
You do, and it's a I don't know, like in some ways I enjoy it and I love it, and it's lots of fun.
Me too.
And
otherwise I wouldn't do it if I didn't.
I love a party, but on the other hand, oftentimes creative people don't do well in those kinds of situations.
Social environment, like social situations.
Yeah, you can learn that. Show ponies. Oh, hey, I'm good at it. I'm fine. My father's a priest. I lived. I lots of my friends were politicians' children and things like this. Like I can do all that stuff, but there are lots of creative people that are really bad in those kinds of situations.
No, I know what you mean. It's not for everybody. It's not for everybody. And to speak publicly and all that is not for everybody. But you can learn it. It's something it can be learned by experience. If you put yourself in those situations too often, you can practice it, and you kind of say like, oh, I didn't do this really well last time. I have to be careful. Like this didn't work. This looked awkward. So you can learn it, or you can just create that. Like you can be that sort of clumsy, ditzy person that people kind of think, oh, that's his personality.
That could be your shtick. That's fine.
Yeah. Because even when we do our speeches and stuff, people will say like, "Oh, it was great. It was so casual." We can't do it any other way. Just casual.
Yeah, like I was on TV one time, and I did this weird thing where that was very comfortable for me, where I like crossed my legs in this funny way, and my dad watched me on TV, and he's just like, "Well, that'll teach you to ever cross your legs on TV again, huh?" Because it looked so awkward on the television because of the angle of it. It looked so wrong. Felt totally comfortable to me, but like, fuck.
Sometimes it's also good, like, I just don't care, like, this is how it is. No one cares anyway. It's just us that cares too much.
Now, something I've often wondered about too. So, okay, the idea of being a participant, so like being an artist showing in a festival, the idea or the hope, I guess I should say. So, like as an artist myself, so like the hope of being in a festival is that basically some curator or gallerist or something would see you, and then you would sort of be discovered, and they would sort of
Yeah,
take you down your career on a certain path.
yeah.
Have you found that kind of things happen?
It does happen. It does happen because even portfolio reviews work. Like I discovered a lot of artists on the portfolio reviews, and that we exhibited at the festival later. It doesn't have to happen like the following year because of the subjects and themes we have. Because I write them down and I've got them in my in somewhere in my book, and I when I like the project. So portfolio reviews work. Also exhibiting their work because especially like now it's a little bit tricky because of the COVID and the travel stuff. So normally you would have a lot of people from like different festivals and galleries coming over. Now it is not as mostly for the local audience and for people from the neighboring countries. So maybe it's not happening as much depending how good you are in promoting the festival and the exhibition online. When I went to another festival and when other directors of the festivals come to our festival, they're always like, "Oh, I like this and this. I want to show it as well." It works. It's an exposure, which if someone likes your work, then and it gets promoted other places and galleries. Some people want to publish your book, and so it's good.
I love it. I mean, it's the theory that I believe they were founded
Yeah.
on as the idea of festivals was basically to be able to offer exposure to people who might not have other normal commercial avenues for exposure.
From our personal experience, we had artists no one heard about, like local artists who like they had never been anywhere. No one ever saw their work. They didn't exhibit. Like it was almost their first exhibition at our festival, and we done like a big promotion for them, and now they're doing well. Like I mean, I don't want to take the credit or anything, because but I'm sure it helped. And obviously, they have to produce other good stuff. It can't be just one good project. But it definitely helps certain people to have the exposure at our festival. But I think it works. And that's why I see meaning in the whole thing. It's not like completely meaningless.
It's really sad how the public does not understand how much time, effort, and sort of motivation. Because like I started a festival, God, when was it? Back in like 2002, that still goes on. I left the company obviously like 15 years ago. The idea was to help people get exposure, and basically it was a commodity based thing. It was the idea. It was what we called an affordable art fair where everything
Yeah.
was priced under a certain price point. So like artists could get rid of their scrap works, their stuff they wouldn't exhibit or couldn't sell in their commercial retail ideas, and it was magnificent. That people made tons of money, and then of course many of these artists have moved on and have had great careers. It was just a helpful thing. It was just something to give them a little bit more money, get a little bit more
Yeah.
exposure, connect to a few more people. I mean, we don't do it as an altruistic thing. We're not
Yeah.
sitting here going, "Oh, I just care about the arts." It's still the way we want to be able to make a living running these events and to be able to help grow the industry.
Yeah.
And nobody cares to fund that.
Yeah, exactly. We like a couple of years ago, we added to the festival another sort of platform. We call it Off Academy. So we've got 4 sections now of the festival. Like one is the main curated section of that's curated by us. Then we've got an off academy section. Then we've got an off satellite section, which are like exhibitions outside of the main space in different galleries. And then it's off Libris section, which is a new thing, which we are exhibiting self-published books also. But the main thing which I want to tell you about is the off academy section, which we started doing like maybe, I don't know, like 5 years ago or something. It was photographic universities or universities where they teach photography. They were part of our festival since the beginning because I was still a student when I founded the festival. So my university and the university from local universities were exhibiting in group shows, presenting their students. And then one year we thought of the idea that we should cover it as a whole thing and create a section of the festival just for universities. So last year we had like 11 universities from all around Europe presenting work of their students, which was absolutely amazing because it was another COVID year, like December lockdown. Like I think the day we closed the festival, the following day lockdown started or something. It was like really like perfect timing. And so it was a miracle that we managed to get 11 different universities from Europe, and they came to Bratislava. They hung their work, they came with the students, which is always a very good thing when the students come to the festival, and then you've got like different universities from different cities, different countries, and they can talk to each other. They can see the work from different universities and how their approach and all of that. So that's another thing. We are giving exposure to really young and starting photographers. And then we've got an award. We call it On Award, which is the opposite of off festival, like off and on. We give an award to one of the students from one of the universities. And they get an opportunity to exhibit their work on the festival next year in the main curated section as a solo show. So that's something we are doing. And then also we've got a main prize from the curated section of the festival. We give 5,000 euro cash to one of the artists. We call it Lee Award. This is one of our partners, the Lee fashion brand, which is absolutely great because when we discussed it with people from Lee, they were like, okay, so what do they want? Do they want their pictures to be on T-shirts and stuff? I was like, well, they want money. That's what they need. They want money so they can create more stuff. They want to be independent, and so they have time and, as you said, time and space and money to create other projects without feeling that they have to go to work in the morning and don't know what they're going to eat or where they're going to live.
Well, but a T-shirt with their artwork on it could also be an additional thing that would be quite amazing, because that's a great thing to put on your CV as well.
No, I don't think it would be great. It would be great, but I don't think all the artists would like that. You know what I mean? Like they might not like the idea of presenting their artwork on the T-shirt. They might be too commercial for them, or they might not.
Well, and the imagery just might not translate well.
Exactly. Because the project that won this award, 2021, it was a project from Turkey. Ali Sultan is the artist, and it was about refugees. It was a refugee camp in Turkey. So I don't think this kind of pictures would work well on commercial products. And the year before, it was an American artist and their project about transgender people. So it's not really, stuff that would probably sell well as, like from the perspective of the fashion brand. And I don't think the artist would also like the idea that it might feel that, kind of you are cheapening the work or something. So the cash is better.
Yeah, legitimate. I mean, not every artwork translates well to, basic fashion or even just graphic sort of uses. So yeah, no, it makes sense. And of course, we all want money, for God's sake.
Yeah. So this is how we are trying, to help the artist in this way as well.
You talk about helping the artist. Do you because I've often wondered this since I've never been in a festival. Do you all mentor the people and help them sort of hone and refine and maybe even edit their exhibitions? Or do you pretty much just take it as submitted and you just go, okay?
It's very individual. Some people like that. Some artists don't like that. So if we see that there is a space for that, we are very willing to help. As I mentioned, certain spaces requires different approaches of the artwork and different approaches to exhibiting the work. So I'm and my team is here to help. But sometimes, the artists, they know what they want, and it's tricky to deal with it, So I mean, it's very individual.
Have you run into any sort of situations? Like one of the things that keeps coming up in the podcast over and over again is basically like, no matter how good your artwork is, you also have to be enjoyable to work with. So like, have you had any situations where somebody makes fabulous work, but they are horrible people?
Many, yes. Should I name them all? No, I would never do that. But yes,
No,
there
please
is
don't
always
name
there is
names.
always there. Yeah, I mean, yes, it's those are the great, the greatest stories. And we, it's a we had a Christmas party last Friday. On the 21st of January, we had a Christmas party because we couldn't do Christmas parties here in December because of the lockdown. So now we can do parties up to 20 people, and everybody has to be like triple vaccinated and all that. So we managed to do a Christmas party for for our team and like closest people that we were on the festival. And that's always the best stories, like it's horrible when you have to deal with it, but afterwards when you're like, oh, do you remember this person? Like this was awful. This was, it's the best memories in a way, but it is, yes, there's a lot of big ego, like a lot of big ego and a little bit of mental issues and stuff, but it comes with art. Like we as artists are not completely sane people, so I completely understand when that happens. But yes, it sometimes it's difficult.
Oh yeah, just to be clear, I'm not pointing fingers at anybody else in this. Like I was an egotistical little arrogant shit in my youth, and I hope that I've become more wise and thoughtful in my actions these days. But I mean, I think like at a certain point, it's self-confidence is good, but there's a fine line between
Yes,
self-confidence and arrogance.
self confidence is good, but there is arrogance is not good. Arrogance is not good. And in my experience, what I can say, honestly, doing this for 13 years,
Just between the two of us,
just
yes.
between the two, I mean, I'm not going to say anything that shocking. I'm sure like people would agree with me that the biggest stars are always the ones that are not as much as difficult as the ones who only started and they had one great project and they think they are a big shot or something. It's always that sort of thing like, oh, you kind of think like, okay, good luck to you. They have to think also. This is a very small world. Photographic world is a very small world. Everybody knows everybody. And if you go to art fairs and festivals, all the directors and people, the gallery owners, and they know each other. Like I know most of those people by name. Like we're friends, like we know each other and we talk. You know what I mean? So it happens many times that people ask me about their opinion, like, "Oh, I saw you had that and that person on the festival. How was it?" You know what I mean?
I do. And it's a very important part of the entire industry that a lot of people don't really talk too much about because it's just like any other job to a certain extent. Like, as much as you want the people to be competent and able to do their job, you also want to enjoy working with them.
Exactly. But I think it's not just typically for our industry. I think it's every industry is like that. People behaving weirdly and awfully in every industry and job. As you say, it's like when you do this and you do it almost as a volunteer, as I mentioned, it's like you just want to make it as pleasurable as possible for you. You just don't want to have that. So you don't want to work with people that are too difficult.
Okay. And so speaking of that, like a little last thing is, do you have any advice for so let's say there's a young artist out there that's thinking about submitting to the festival or creating a career, or even somebody who wants to like create their own festival. So from your experiences, any sort of insights or advice?
Don't give up. I think that's like to be very persistent. You probably think, when you do something like this is the best I ever done and stuff. And in 10 years, you might, look at this bag and you go like, oh, it wasn't that great. And I thought like how great it is. And I was like shoving it down people's throats. Don't give up because you're going to get better. Like if you keep on doing it, you get better in everything. Like by practice makes perfect. That's the main thing, isn't it? So even if it's not great, in 10 years, you're going to be much better in everything you do. It would be really strange that you would be doing something for 10 years and you would still be at the same place, that you didn't evolve at all. Like you would have to be really kind of, I don't know what that would have to be, but be persistent. And if you love doing it, keep on doing it. Like even if you are an artist, or even if you are the festival director, like there has been like many festivals that people started, and then once they realized like how much work it is, they gave up after 2 years. So it's the thing, like just don't give up. Don't be a quitter.
Yeah, in my career, I have this thing where like I'll do a series of work and I'll work for maybe 3 or 4 years on it, and then I'll put it out and everybody's like, nice. And then I move on and I do another series. And then as soon as I finish that series, put it up, everybody's like, oh, you know what? I really loved the previous series you did.
There is that this one is even worse. But it's good, like why not? I mean, this is how I felt.
It's a continual progression. Yeah. No, it's a continual progression. Like whenever I put out a series, everybody's like, nice. And then when I move on to the next series, everybody's like, oh, you know what? I want to buy that last series. Yeah. And then I'll make a next series and they're like, oh, I want to buy that last series.
Because you are still doing something. Like I think a lot of people want to see that you are doing something. Like you are not one trick pony, like that I think that you just stick around and you are serious about it. I think the hardest thing to persuade people that you are serious about stuff. Because there is so many artists and festivals and events and galleries and stuff all around the world. And what makes you different to them is the question. Do you want to be different? Is it necessary to be different? Is it possible to be different?
These days, that is a question with social media and the interconnectedness of all thought these days through social media. Like, is there anything really unique and different to say?
Yeah. The only thing what's different and what's unique is that it's your approach, that you are giving your own experiences to as an addition to it. Otherwise, I don't think that you can really do anything new, or probably the only thing that you can add your personal touch to it. And that's from the photograph you take to the festival you direct. It's your name underneath it, like that makes it think like, oh, that's his work. When we opened the gallery, it was fun that people come and say, oh, I knew immediately that's you. When I saw the space, when I saw the logo, I knew that's you. So it's that thing that makes it unique, I guess. It's that your signature thing.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to chat.
Thank you as well. It was really lovely. I had a really good time.
Thank you for listening to the complete conversation. We would appreciate it if you would share the podcast with your friends, family, coworkers, studio mates, anyone with an interest in the arts and creative endeavors. The building and strengthening of the arts and creative community is at the core of our mission for this podcast. They can listen and subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. We are produced by 5014. The audio was edited by CushAudio Services, and the music was created by Pete Bybee. The Wise Fool Art Podcast is supported in part by an EEA grant from Iceland, Liechtenstein, and Norway in an effort to work together for a green, competitive, and inclusive Europe. We would also like to thank our partners Hunt Kastner in Prague, Czech Republic, and Kunstsentrene i Norge in Norway. Links to EEA grants and our partner organizations are available in the show notes or on our website, wisefoolpod.com.